So, my name is Blair, and I started the online business program when I was working full time. So, I actually live outside of Pittsburgh originally, and I went to WVU. So, I started at a more of a theological school, and then I went to West Virginia as kind of like a stepping stone, really. And I started there, and I did it about a year and a half in person. And I was like, the classes are too big. I cannot handle this like big of a classroom and things like that. So uh, I went and met with one of my professors, and they mentioned to me WVU online, and it was more of like I was like, I don't really know. And then the next semester came, and I was like, let's just do it. And that's how I actually finished. So, and I could do more classes, I felt like, because I wasn't with 50 some other people. It was more like a one-on-one. Even if there was like 45, 50 people in my class, it didn't feel like it. But then whenever I got into the program and I learned all the classes that you can pick and all like the exciting things that come with being online, I really started to like embrace the program and really knew that I wanted to graduate from that program. Exactly. So the professors really played a key role in that. So, with like discussion board posts, just kind of connecting with them that way. But also when you're having group assignments, you can always ask people in your class to download GroupMe or anything like that. And they'll want to connect with you because they're probably all in the same situation that you are. Online classes, that was like a big thing for me, is I'm not really going to be in person, but with the online lectures, you're basically seeing the professor, even if they're not in person. Even with the assignments online that are due weekly, you can kind of get with your like fellow cohorts and just be like, hey, what are you having problems with? What am I having problems with? And kind of meet up to find a solution. So it was really great because you don't have to be in the same place at once. Yeah, so a lot of time you just have to like really think when you need help. So with my thing, I would ask the professors any question because I know that's why they're there. So it was just kind of, okay, I don't understand this question and I can't find it on my own. So I'm going to go ahead and reach out. And all the times, I never had one time where the professor was like, no, I'm not helping you. They have either guided me in the right direction for the answer or explained why the answer was what it was, which was really great. A lot of times, we don't have that. We don't want to ask for help and we don't want to reach out. So that was like a big thing I had to learn transferring to online classes is just, how do I ask for help? How do I realize that I need help? So that was a big thing. Also with the classmates that we had and everything. So the classmates would also like have a reply all for the email. So that way, if they reply all and they say, hey, like, I can't really understand this question. Has anybody figured this out? And can anybody walk me through it? And then every time, like someone, like personally, if I knew the answer, I would email them back and be like, hey, here's how I did this. If you need further explanation, I'm more than happy to help on Zoom, or I'm more than happy to send you like a diagram of how I came up with that answer. Time management and organization. I feel like it's something that is slept on until you absolutely need it. So with this, it's like, professors will be like, hey, welcome to class. Here's all the material that you need up front. It's due this, and this day. And if it's not due, you just won't get credit for it. And they have to do that tough love kind of thing because if not, we're not going to adjust. So my first class of online, I was just like, I have no idea what I'm doing. I don't even know if I have all my assignments done. So, what I ended up doing was printing out all the syllabus at the beginning of the class and highlighting important days. And then on index cards, I put, okay, so this Sunday, everything's due, or this Friday, everything's due. So that way, whenever I go through it, I can just check mark or cross off or any kind of way to show that I finished that and I don't have to worry about it anymore. One of the biggest things though, in my one class, I had like a 10-page paper. And I was like, I know I'm going to wait until the absolute last minute to do this paper. So I started at the beginning of the class doing little by little of the assignment. So that way I wouldn't wait until the last minute. And that really gave me a better grade overall because in the middle of the class, the professor was like, hey, if you guys want to send me your rough drafts, I'm happy to go over them with you before the final deadline was due. And I had enough that I had basically a whole rough draft of 10 pages. And he kind of went through with me and just kind of told me what was good, what needed to be touched upon, and what we could just take out of the paper completely. So it was really nice. Please, learn time management, learn organization, because that's really going to benefit you in the long run. Find ways to relieve stress because even though you're not sitting in a physical classroom, you still have to do the work and you're still getting stressed out, and there might not be someone here to help you directly. So you might have to find the answer on your own, or you might have to email the professor ahead of time, like, hey, I have this question, and they won't hesitate to help you, but you might get overwhelmed or stressed with an assignment or anything that's being due. So just find good stress relievers, do some yoga, do anything that you can just to kind of relax. Being a mountaineer is being a leader, always willing to help people, always willing to, extend that extra hand, because sometimes, especially in online classes, people don't want to bother the professors because maybe, like I said, it might be 9 or 10 o'clock at night and you're doing an assignment and you don't want to bother your professors. So it's being in that group me, being willing to help, being willing to extend that hand. Like, being on campus was great, don't get me wrong, and I loved it. But I found a new sense of who I wanted to be as a mountaineer and graduate being online. And it was more of a real world experience as to, just being on campus.